Well, hi everyone. I am Ed. I'm one of the co-founders of 𝗢𝗡𝗏𝗃𝗧𝗏. I've got Susanna, my co-founder, with me on the call. She's going to be helping out, moderating in the chat. And this whole session is going to be about opportunity solution trees. So I'm going to be talking through this whole template that you see being shared here. Susanna's going to share the link in the chat, and we'll be sending you a follow-up email as well. So you can make your own version of this template, and you can follow along in this session if you want to, or you can follow up later on. Just to give a shout out for 𝗢𝗡𝗏𝗃𝗧𝗏, our company, we produce templates and learning materials like this one for product managers and other people in the tech industry. And we're really working from our practical experience of having led product teams, led tech companies on the tools that we have found have really worked for us, and also for our colleagues and people we know in leadership positions as well. So if you like this session, you're going to love our discovery course, you're going to love our strategy course, and all the content that we have on our wiki. For the bargain price of £29 a month, you too can be a 𝗢𝗡𝗏𝗃𝗧𝗏 member. But with that, I'll get on with the session of opportunity solution trees. Now, what you see in this template, if I just zoom out a bit, you're going to see there's two sides to this template. So you're going to see basically for the opportunity solution tree, we've got one version here which tells you, this is the template, what you could fill in. And then over here on the right hand side, we've got an example, kind of like simple worked example, which you can go through. So those are the two things that I'm going to be talking through. But as I say, we're basically going to talk through each of the levels of an opportunity solution tree over the course of the next hour. And I'm hoping some of you will actually kind of go along and kind of think about what this would be in your teams. And we can get some examples from the group to talk over, because you can read about opportunity solution trees lots of different places, like on our wiki. What's going to be great about this session is if you've got questions, you can stick them in the chat, and then I will try and answer those questions as best I can. With that, just to give you a quick, what is an opportunity solution tree? So an opportunity solution tree is a way of visualizing your product strategy and your discovery. This was really kind of designed and popularized by 𝗍𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 a few years ago, and has since become a really popular tool throughout product and design communities. And a bit like kind of making spaghetti bolognese or something like this, everyone's going to have a slightly different recipe for how they make it. So this is sort of my recipe, but I'd encourage you to also have a think about how you apply it, which bits you like, which bits you don't like, and kind of see our template as a kind of starting point you can build on, not as like the perfect version that cannot be edited or changed in any way. So opportunity solution trees, there's two things that make them really good. The first thing is, if you read them top to bottom, they have these 4 levels. Sorry, let me introduce the 4 levels first. They've got 4 levels broadly. They've got the outcome that you want at the top. Those are the results. That might be called, we call that the objective as well. So it's like, what do you want to happen from all this work you're doing? Secondly, if you go below that, you'll have a number of different opportunities you can tackle to reach that outcome. So what are the problems? What are the kind of business opportunities you can tackle to deliver the results that you want? And then each of your opportunities will have a number of solutions. So these are features, epics, things you can build that actually solve or address the opportunities and then deliver the outcomes. And then the assumptions, these are the things, these are the kind of risks basically associated with your solution, which you can test systematically to increase your confidence that the solution is going to deliver the impact you want. So these are all basically linked together. And what makes this a really powerful format is you can then read your opportunity solution tree both top to bottom vertically, but also horizontally side to side. So when you read it top to bottom, what you're doing is you're connecting your objective, your outcome at the top, through your opportunities and your solutions to your assumptions. And what that means is even the kind of smallest test or piece of discovery that you're doing on a day-to-day basis, you can link all the way back up to the results that you want to have. So that's the kind of golden thread of work that is really powerful in making sure that everyone on the team recognizes why the work they're doing is valuable. The other thing you can do, as I mentioned, is read these side to side. So opportunity, if you look at, say, like the opportunity layer, then you probably have like 3, 4 different opportunities side by side here. And when you compare those side by side, then you start to get a sense of which ones are the most important, which ones are you going to prioritize. And by prioritizing your opportunities or prioritizing your solutions, you're then developing your strategy because you're developing a sense of like, what's the most important thing for me to focus on. So that's why we like opportunity solution trees. And with that, I'm going to dive now into this, this template and just kind of, as I say, I'm going to run through a little bit on each level and basically explain what have we got there, how is it structured, why is it important. Then if you've got questions, or if you want to share kind of what you think this is in your team, then I will answer those questions. I will give you some feedback before moving on to the next level. So top one here. So yeah, we've called this the outcome or the objective. This is the results that you have you're trying to get to. It's like, why are you doing all this work? What is the business objective that you're trying to reach? And this objective, yeah, I always advise people to define it in 2 ways, a kind of qualitative way and a quantitative way. So your qualitative way, this is your mission, and this is some kind of hopefully inspiring statement. We want to do X. And your metric is then your objective measure of how well you've reached that mission. So the mission always comes first for me, and the metric then measures it, your progress. And I love this format. It's kind of like move metric from baseline to target by deadline. So if we come across here to the example, you'll see what I mean. So this is an example. It's not the most inspiring mission. I'll give you that. Like increase our user base. Okay, so we want to be the biggest XYZ app in the world. Our metric is going to be grow MAU, so monthly active users, from 80K to 120K by March 31st. So you've got a really clear definition there of what that looks like. And you can then on March 31st look back and see, did you deliver that or not? And it's a very kind of objective answer. So I'd say if you are following along, now is the time to spend like a couple of minutes having a think about like, what does this look like for your team? And if possible, like have a crack at your mission, have a crack at your metric. And I will also run through some of the questions as I see them appear. If you've got any questions, just dump them in the chat. So, going from Dean, I'm very interested to understand how this is used in very early stage 0 to 1 product build versus more mature products. So I think the structure of the opportunity solution trees is going to look very similar in sense of you're still going to have these different layers. What's going to be different is the level of evidence you have at each level and what you consider sort of sufficient evidence to act on. So if you're in an established company, then you've probably got quite a lot of analytics in place, existing user research. You're going to have quite a high bar for acting because also you've got quite a lot at stake. Whereas in a startup, you're going to have a much less information basically to hand a lot fewer insights, and probably your barrier to like making changes or building things is going to be a lot lower as a result. You're just there's less at stake there. So that answers your question, Dean. See who else here. In 𝗍𝗍𝗘𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 book, there's a lot of focus on ideation to establish the outcomes and opportunities. I found this to be quite messy compared to moving down the OST. How do you establish the right outcome to work on? Yeah, so I think in a lot of product teams, if you're working at the individual product team level, so you are working yourself with designers and engineers and data analysts and so on, then you may well be set an objective, or at least kind of set an objective which you then need to kind of structure and define a bit tighter. So the objective is the results that you want to have, whereas the opportunities is really sort of the, like, what can you tackle to delivering those results. And I'd say with all of these tools, frameworks, I'm going to run through this kind of in quite a sequential way. I'm going to go objective, and then I'm going to go opportunity, and then I'm going to solution, then assumptions. In reality, what's going to happen is you're going to do a first cut of this, maybe in a workshop with your team, or maybe just on your own in this session. And you're going to get kind of a sketchy outline. And then you're going to go and share it with some more people and get their feedback and do some research and start kind of refining it and working it up. And it's going to be iterative over the whole, every level of the table. So in that sense, I wouldn't worry about having the perfect objective before moving down the tree. Like, you get it sort of like, 80, 90% there, that's fine. Then work out the opportunity. Of course, if you completely change your objective, your opportunities will follow. But if this is a case of like, you kind of know a little bit what your objective is, and you kind of know a little bit what your opportunities are, get them both down, because showing what your opportunities are is also going to help you like define your objective. Okay, a few more of these questions where I've got there. Alex, to what extent do you think this can be helpful as a product strategy tool? Any dependency on there already being a strategy in place, or how might the inputs vary depending on there being a strategy or not? So this is a really, really valuable product strategy tool. And I'd say at this level, discovery and strategy is, it's basically the same thing. So if you look at a strategy, what you'll find is it will have an objective at the top, and then it will have, 2, 3, 4 pillars underneath that are the main, themes of work that you can go and tackle. And an opportunity solution tree is a great way of kind of like visualizing that or thinking about that. And then under each of your pillars or opportunities, whatever you want to call them, you're going to have the things that you can build, which, called here solutions. So I'd look at this as a way of defining your strategy. If you don't have a strategy, this is a great way of kind of like helping you think about what your strategy is as well. So next question, we've got one here on like, how would you go about prioritizing different opportunities? It's probably a good time to move on to opportunities then. So let's a little bit about the outcomes at the top. These are the results you want. Define them with your mission, define them with your metrics. Great. So you then got both a qualitative and quantitative definition of what you're trying to achieve. Then you can go down to opportunities. So these are the areas you can focus on to deliver impact. Opportunities are often customer problems. They're not always. So if your goal, if your outcome you wanted was to, boost revenue, then, for example, pricing might be an opportunity. Yeah, could we raise our prices? Right. That's not solving a customer problem, but it is a business opportunity you could exploit that would help you achieve your customer outcome. So that's why I call, and Teresa as well, because it's, opportunities rather than problems, because they could be business related. How do you work out what your opportunities are? 4 great steps to doing these, like go and speak to some users, right? Go and see what are the problems that your users have. Have a look at the data, do some behavioral analysis, see where people are getting stuck, see what are the trends you can spot. Process mapping, the third kind of great way. So go and look at what internal teams are doing. Can you make them more efficient? Go and look at what your users are doing. Go and look at kind of the wider context that you're working in, especially if you're in a kind of B2B context. And fourthly, go and speak to subject matter experts. Like those people, they've done a lot of the user interviews, or they've done the behavioral analysis probably before. They've got just like a lot of experience of how things work. They'll probably have ideas as well of where you might go. So your opportunity, the way I've laid it out here in this version of the opportunity solution tree is, the prompt is almost like a a customer need as you might get in a use case as you might get in jobs to be done. It doesn't have to be. It's not always going to be a customer need, as we just discussed, but that's quite a good kind of prompt for me to think about. And then you can see like under the opportunity, I put evidence here. So how do you know this is a real opportunity? What are the insights that you have that support this? And again, that could be the customer interviews you've done. It could be the evidence. That's going to help you start to think about how you prioritize these little bars here, low, medium, high. I kind of added those on as the kind of like, once you've got more than one opportunity, and again, you should have more than one opportunity because otherwise you can't prioritize. As soon as you get multiple opportunities, then you can prioritize between them. And you can think, okay, which of these do we have the best evidence for, and the best evidence that it's a big opportunity that is worth tackling? So just to give you an example of what this might look like in our kind of fiction example here. So we're going to say, okay, our goal was to increase the number of MAU. Remember, that was our outcome up here. How do we increase MAU, monthly active users, by March 31st? One opportunity we think here is to help users recognize the value the product offers really quickly. And maybe we've got some kind of supporting evidence there. We've got some customer interviews where we've heard things like, I only realized the value after 2 weeks, or we've got some analysis that shows that people who start to engage with the product have a higher retention, or we can see that 3 out of 4 of our major competitors have a highly polished onboarding experience. So we're starting to get some signals here that, competitors having a product is not a good signal in its own right, but when you combine it with some of the other things, you start to get a sense that, okay, maybe there's some value here. Maybe there's something we want to look at making sure that users, as they're onboarded, they really kind of recognize the value that we offer like very quickly, and they start engaging with the product. And if we can do that, our hypothesis is they're going to stick around, they're going to tell friends and colleagues, and that's going to drive up our user numbers. Okay, so coming back then to the second step, how do you actually prioritize these? So once you've got some opportunities, then you're going to think about prioritizing this. And there's different factors you can weigh, you can put into that prioritization. And I've listed a few of them out here. So you might do a kind of, firstly, an opportunity sizing. So you might just model out the impact you expect. If we completely solve this opportunity, what would the difference in our numbers be? That's one way of doing things. That sort of opportunity sizing is often driven by looking at kind of what I've called customer factors, incidence and severity being the ones I often think about. So incidents, how many of our customers does this affect? Does this affect everyone that's a potential customer, or does this only affect a subset? So if you're thinking about, say, eBay as a marketplace, does this affect like all of your buyers or all of your sellers or all of your users? It might affect, just a subset of who you're going after. And severity is then, for people that this issue affects, how big a deal is it? Is it like hair on fire, really, really like a crazy big problem? Or is it sort of much more subtle? It'd be kind of nice if this wasn't a big deal, if this was solved, but actually we can kind of live with it. Those aren't the only things though, because you might also factor in, company factors. What is the wider business context? What is the wider, the wider business strategy? Are you trying to grow revenue? Are you trying to reduce costs? Are you trying to kind of expand into different segments or different markets? These are all going to think about, going to shape the opportunities you've got there. And market factors. So how do you position yourself against competitors? What is the value proposition you're offering? What is the value proposition of your competitors? That's going to affect how you prioritize this as well. So that's one, because there's a lot of those different factors, and they're not all quantitative factors. That's why I haven't put some kind of formula here that helps you prioritize these. I said, like, hey, think about the evidence, and you could, maybe stick some more context stickies around here as well. If, say, market positioning is important, and then have a think about the priorities. Okay, so hopefully that answers the prioritization question. I'm going to go back to the questions in the links. So do you drill down into one opportunity only, or can you drill down onto two opportunities, solutions, experiments running in parallel? Yeah, so all throughout this tree, this tree branches at every level. So you'll have multiple opportunities coming off one outcome, multiple solutions off one opportunity, and all the way down. You want to, be somewhat focused, because if you had 5 opportunities and each of them had 5 solutions and each of them had 5 assumptions, you'd quite quickly have so many things you were looking into. Actually, you wouldn't be able to be focused on any one particular thing, and your time would be very fragmented. At the same time, you don't want to focus down on just one opportunity, one solution, one assumption, because if you're doing that, then you've got no capacity to choose different approaches, and there's no real strategy there, right? You're not making any decisions about is A or B a better choice, right? Because you've got no alternatives. So you want to do a sort of, what I'd recommend is sketch this out at a high level, kind of very quickly, and then do a kind of almost like a gut feel prioritization, or a prioritization of what you know right now. And then once you've narrowed it down to 2 or 3 things at each level, start to work those up in a bit more detail and be much more quantitative and much more evidence-based about do you refine it down further. And then you're going to get the best kind of both worlds, where you're not going to kind of boil the ocean with all your analysis, but you're going to be quantitative and data informed where it really counts. Okay, is a question here from Amit Jain, is preparing the tree a combined exercise a product manager needs to do with other stakeholders, or how do you incorporate inputs from business stakeholders? Yeah, great question. So I think this sort of thing, you can very much do it as a workshop. If you've got stakeholders who are really paying a lot of attention, who are really bought into the work you're doing, who are very responsive, doing this, at least as a first draft with them, can be a really powerful way of kind of pulling out insights and getting their sense of where you focus. That, depending on who you're dealing with, might be too into the weeds for, I don't know, a CEO or another exec. So in that case, it might be something that you want to show them a high level version, a simplification. So you just show them the sort of, your strategies that could effectively be your objective, and then, okay, this is what we're trying to achieve, and the key opportunities we're going after are A, B, and C, and you just talk about the opportunities, right? So you're going to get their feedback, but you're going to do it at a high level, maybe not even in a Miro board. So I think it really depends on what is the relationship you've got with your stakeholders and how much information they can handle. Some people, this is going to be a working session. Some, you're going to show a draft version to and ask for feedback. Some you're going to kind of really just boil it down to the details. Okay, Ola's says OKRs and initiatives versus opportunity solution tree. So I'm guessing how do you combine those, or how do you choose between them? So yeah, the way it depends a little bit. OKRs is a whole other topic, right? Which companies put into practice in lots of different ways. So in some companies, your objective, your O, will be your mission here, and your key results will be your metric, and you might have multiple metrics that you're trying to go after. In other companies, your O will be your kind of objective here, and your key results might be much more output focused, and you might almost have your kind of solutions considered your output. So it depends a bit how you're thinking about OKRs. Typically, when I talk about OKRs, I will say hey, if I was asking a product team to write their OKRs for the next quarter, I would say, have a mission for your team, have a single metric, a single key result that measures progress. That's going to be what you've defined here in your objective. And then I'm going to say, I also want to see the initiatives that they're thinking of building. And those initiatives are effectively going to be the solutions down here. And I want to see those groups by the different opportunities. So why are we focusing on the set of solutions? That's the opportunity. And what are the solutions that you think you can fit into your capacity for your team next quarter? So that's how I've generally done it in the past with teams. Satya's asking, how is opportunity solution tree different from impact mapping? So impact mapping, I'm not as familiar with as opportunity solution trees. I think my main understanding is you effectively have an actor at the top of the tree here. So you basically say, this is the business objective that we're trying to deliver. And then you say, okay, there's different actors that could be players here. So that could be, let's go back to that eBay example. We could affect our buyers, we could affect our sellers, and we could affect our customer service agents, maybe an internal stakeholder. Right, let's look at the opportunities and the needs for each of those actors. So it's adding in another layer of kind of personas effectively. I think something I'd stress is like, there are lots of variations on doing these kinds of trees. Impact mapping is one, opportunity solution trees is another. I wouldn't worry too much about, oh, we're doing it this way in our company, or you've got to do it, this way. Because a lot of them get to broadly the same answer through broadly the same techniques. So pick whichever one speaks to you or you've had explained best. And then, as I say, kind of like build on that yourself and adapt it to your company and your context, because that's how you're going to get most out of it. Okay. Opportunities. Those are opportunities. Again, if you've got any other questions about opportunities, then I'll continue to answer them. Ricardo, how much time do you spend on the tree versus actually compiling the evidence or testing assumptions? So, I mean, usually just writing up the tree should be like pretty quick, right? Because this is something I think, even if you've got no evidence, you could sketch out an opportunity solution tree based on what you know at the time, or what your kind of assumptions are or your hypothesis is, and then you can go and look for the evidence. So the bulk of your time should be going and finding evidence, and then you just need to come back to your opportunity solution tree and update it whenever you have new insights, new evidence, that affects it, whether that's down at the bottom or in the middle. Okay, I'm going to go on to solutions now and talk a little bit about them before coming back to some of these questions. So we've done objectives, we've done opportunities, now getting onto the solutions side of things. So the solutions are the features you might ship to generate impact. And I kind of think, where do good solutions come from? A really well-defined problem. So you've got an objective, which we have in our opportunity solution tree. So that's great. We've got a diagnosis, so we know what's going wrong. In that sense, is like, we've got some opportunities here. And context, we understand the user and the business. So we've got all of those things kind of like making sure we know, like, what is the environment we're working in? And then into that kind of well-defined problem, we're adding great inspiration. And great inspiration comes at like different levels of relevance and innovation. So you can get good inspiration from direct competitors. It'll be very relevant and it won't be very innovative. Obviously, if you're copying features from competitors, you're not going to come up with anything brand new. You might have inspiration from cross-industry references. So people solving similar problems, but in a very different vertical. That's going to be a bit more innovative, and you see people kind of being like, oh, actually love the way that Airbnb does search, and we're going to take that across into our B2B app, and that's going to inform how we think about search, and it's going to be innovative for our segment because we're not in the B2C travel space. So it's going to be a bit more innovative, bit less relevant. And then, really innovative, never seen before kind of interactions. These come from much more abstract inspiration, things like, art, architecture, nature. These are things that are very difficult to sort of prompt in a workshop, but a good reason to go and spend some time in art galleries. So often, solutions will come out of an ideation session, whether that's like a formal workshop session or whether that's a kind of informal, just the ideas the team have come up with, or a long-running Slack chat or something. If you want more thoughts on how you come up with solutions, then we've got a great article on running an ideation session, which I'd really suggest you check out. But basically what you're trying to get to is a range of solutions. So like a broad range of options to choose between, each of which is kind of useful and creates user value, but also impactful. So it generates business value whilst it generates user value at the same time. So it's a win for both you and your customers. And these, in opportunity solution trees, I generally kind of frame these quite simply, which you could potentially do as a hypothesis, or you could just do it kind of like, hey, we're going to build X thing, and you might describe what it is. If you're going to do it as a hypothesis, you might do it something along the lines of, we believe X feature will encourage user type to do this action. And therefore we believe that action is going to solve this need, and that need is going to deliver this outcome. Okay, so how does that translate into our example here? We believe adding motivational questions pre-sign up will encourage users to complete the onboarding process. So motivational questions is like, they're things like when you log into an app and as you're creating your account, they say, what is the benefit you're hoping to get out of our service? So Calm, Headspace, Lumosity, a lot of these apps do these sorts of questions, and they're very good at kind of increasing users' intrinsic motivation to complete sign up and go on to convert. So that could be the hypothesis here. Okay, let's go back to the questions then, see what we've got. Right. Dave, I like thinking of OSTs just as a set of principles that help us combat bias. We separate opportunities from solutions in the normal agile way to avoid leaving to solutioning. Force ourselves to branch options at each stage. Yes, this isn't a question. This is a great observation. Thank you, Dave. When is tree created, Amit? Is it created as part of quarterly planning? Yeah, it could be. I mean, it depends. Quarterly planning, I always think of, shouldn't be a kind of wipe the slates clean and start again from scratch what we're building and what we're thinking about. It should really be a chance to reflect on how things are going and, course correct if we need to. So it's a great time to come back to your opportunity solution tree and update it if you've kind of forgotten about it for a month or two. It's also a great time to create one if you just don't have one. So yes, absolutely. But equally well, I think if you're in the middle of the quarter and you're like, oh, opportunity solution tree might be a useful way of doing things, I wouldn't wait for quarterly planning. I'd just crack one out, sketch one out as soon as possible, see if it adds value, see if the team likes it, and then roll it into your next planning cycle if it is providing you value and it's helping you think about what you're doing. So Gina, are you able to produce features and user stories from this exercise? Yeah, absolutely. So solutions are effectively, that's synonymous with features. A solution, a feature, and epic, these are all sort of the same thing. So what are we building that we think is going to deliver impact? Another question here, how do you ladder up the impact of each solution back to the North Star metric? So you could, you've got your metric here saying, hey, we want to grow MAU in this case from 80K to 120. If you wanted to, you could say you could size the opportunity at each level. So you could size the opportunity. If we do solve this problem, how much impact do we think that's going to have? How many more MAU do you think we're going to have? If we deliver the solution, how many more MAU do you think we're going to have? So you could do that at each level and help escalate it back up. You can also, if you don't want to get that granular, you could just look at the solution. You could kind of size each solution, or you could test it, as you release these things with an A/B test. So there's different ways of doing it. I think it's worth having some sense of given you've got these objectives, actually are the opportunities you're coming up with are big enough to satisfy the objective at the top, and are the solutions big enough to satisfy the opportunity? So you've got that sense of are we actually going to hit our objective if we do these things? Okay, Natalia, going back to the prioritization subject, you mentioned a possible approach for prioritizing the opportunities, sizing, customer, company factors, but it seems a bit generic. Do you have a suggested framework for this level of detail? Perhaps using the RICE framework could be helpful for validating opportunities. What do you think? Yeah, I think the way that I would think about opportunities, yeah, if this is a customer opportunity, then the framework I like to think about is severity, incidence, and confidence. So, incidents, what percentage of our user base does this affect? Severity, how big a problem is this? Is this a kind of like, acute pain problem, or is this kind of like a minor annoyance? And then confidence, how much confidence do we have that this is a real opportunity? How much confidence do we have about how many people this will affect and how important it is to them? The reason I don't kind of roll that into RICE or something like that, I think there are these other factors like customer factors or market factors, which you could also add into the, if you're creating your own scoring matrix, you could also add a score to those, but that's not going to be relevant for all people. So, could you use RICE? I mean, yeah, RICE is effectively that, reach is equivalent to incidence, impact is equivalent to severity, confidence is confidence, and effort. I think you're going to have trouble with the kind of effort to like assessing effort at the opportunity level. So you might do a kind of RIC, RIC, assessment of opportunities, and then break that down into adding an effort at the solution level. Can someone recommend a source to dig into this or other techniques for product testing? Yes, if you are interested in like discovery in general, strategy in general, then very much do kind of check out some of the other resources that Susanna's posting in the chat, or our discovery course on HustleBadger. There's loads of testing techniques, both qualitative, quantitative, how you think about those and how you think about kind of scoring the confidence they give you in different areas. Okay, question from Philip. Would you also apply it to a very generic goal, e.g. finding product market fit for startup? I think you can apply this to a very generic goal, but I think you need to you probably need a little bit of structure to put it into. So I don't think you can start with a completely blank sheet of paper and say, right, our objective is to build a billion-dollar business. What are some opportunities? That's a bit too high level. I think you're going to have a sense of, okay, what are the customers that we're, customers, personas, what's the audience we're going after here? And what are their pain points? So if you're doing a jobs to be done kind of approach, then your use cases, as I say, kind of like they're roughly going to map to your opportunities here. So that's probably how I'd approach it for a like very, very early stage startup. And then as you start to get some confidence about, okay, these are the use cases we're going after, then I think opportunity solution trees work very well for kind of working out which of those use cases you're going after and what are the right things to build for each of those use cases. Okay, Emmanuel, sometimes an opportunity can be too broad and need refining. From your experience, what makes a good opportunity in terms of granularity versus specificity? Yeah, great question. I think what makes a great opportunity, it's going to be too broad if everyone's got a very different sense of what you're trying to build here or what the opportunity is that you're going after. And it's going to be too narrow if you've only got like one solution that it can solve. That's quite a vague answer, I appreciate, but I think a lot of this is going to, again, like there's not a kind of like right way of using the tool that will just solve all of your problems. This is a framework that you've got to inject your own thinking and judgment into. And so you're going to have that judgment being like, hey, when I've written down this opportunity, is that the right level for me and my team and for us? Do we all feel aligned? Is this giving us like, good creative constraints, or is actually this not really helping our thinking? Because the end result of your opportunity solution tree should not be a beautiful tree. It should be that you make really great decisions and build very high impact things for your customers and for your business. So if your opportunity solution tree is facilitating those kinds of conversations and that kind of impact, it's doing the right job and you've probably got things at the right level. And if it's not, then you might want to kind of critique it and say, okay, have we got the right level of specificity? Have we got the right level of evidence here? I'm going to go down another level. So actually one more question I see here. Do you ever use levels to your tree, e.g. break one of those bigger Vega opportunities into sub opportunities? Yes, absolutely. So we're talking this through in a kind of very simple 4 levels, like one layer of opportunity of objective, one level for opportunities, but you could break that out into kind of having a couple of different layers of, you've got sub opportunities or, you know, phases of different solutions. And that can also help you think about things. And again, like how many levels do you have? It's like, well, how many levels is useful for your team? Okay, going on to assumptions then. So we've looked at solutions, we're coming down to assumptions. So assumptions, you know, you could do in a very kind of simple way, as we've done up here with, you know, opportunities, and then we've got some evidence. You could do solutions, and then we've just got some assumptions underneath it. Not go any further than that. I've kind of gone a bit more full fat on the assumptions, and I've broken these out in a few different ways. So firstly, I've said, like, okay, for our assumptions, we can really think about these as risks, right? So if we have an assumption, that's a risk that we want to, you know, we want to validate that assumption. We want to kind of mitigate that risk. Just different way of phrasing it. And our risks we can think about in kind of like classically kind of the 4 ways. You know, value risk. Does the customer really want this? Business risk. Can we operationally deliver it? Is it legal? Is it profitable? Technical risk. Can the engineers build this? Is it going to be scalable, secure, reliable? And usability. Like, do users understand what they're looking at? Can they, you know, when we put it in front of them, are they going to understand the value and be able to engage with it? So first, you can write down all of your risks like in those ways, and that framework can help you think through a few more of the assumptions that you're making and a few of the risks that you might want to mitigate. But also you can break out your evidence for this particular solution in those 4 buckets. So you can say, okay, what is the evidence that we've got that this is high value? What is the evidence that we've got that this is kind of viable, you know, from a business and technical perspective? You can have, you know, you might have a prototype over here in terms of usability, and you might have an impact model for value, or you might have concept testing, or, you know, stack rank survey for value, right? So you have different evidence points in different places. And the benefit of doing this, right, is that when you think through the risks, you're going to have a sense of like, okay, some of these risks are going to be bigger risks than others, and you're going to want more evidence. And then this has really helped you think through what is the discovery you should be doing next, because you're going to want to tackle the biggest risks. We have the least evidence first. So again, just have a quick look at this. You know, in this case, right, we're going to build some motivational screens for our onboarding. Okay, super. And you can see here, you know, in some areas you might not have very many risks. Okay, technical. I mean, we're building some very simple kind of screens here, so this doesn't feel like it's going to have any technical risks. Usability, yeah, we're going to need to make those questions really easy to read. We're going to make sure, you know, do people want to be able to skip, or do we want to prevent them from skipping? That there are going to be a few kind of usability questions there. Maybe we can look at competitors as like an evidence point on how they're phrasing them, or you know, what's the interactions that they've got. And, you know, next steps, we might have a, you know, mock this up as a prototype and user test that whole flow then, or, you know, A/B test different versions, or run banks of questions to rank readability for these sorts of things. Yeah, value, on the other hand, you've got over here, you know, we might be concerned that adding questions to the flow doesn't have any impact, or maybe even has a negative impact on you know, conversion and retention of new users. So that could be a real value risk. What evidence do we have? It's fairly well established as a tactic to increase motivations. That gives us a bit of confidence, but we probably want to A/B test this if that's possible, to check this is actually having the impact we hope it does. So that's quite a quick run through of just, let's say, kind of, you could do this for every solution, right? Where for every solution you've got, you then break out, okay, what are all the assumptions that we've got? How do we think about the evidence we've got behind each of those risks we identified, and what are the next steps? Okay. Back to the questions. Okay. Gina, can we walk through another example where an employee chatbot team that is competing with a new innovative solutions in the Gen AI space? Desired outcome is to help answer any work-related questions. Gen AI would help us get there, but technology is still being developed. How do you stay ready for that change? Okay, so I mean, I'll kind of run through this very briefly as another example. I think the first thing you need to do is say, okay, we're going to build an employee chatbot, so an internal chatbot that people can use, presumably to get information about what's in their company. What's our objective here? Like, how are we defining success, both qualitatively and quantitatively? So objective might be quality, our mission might be like help employees find whatever they want, at the click of a button type of thing, or with a simple prompt. And our metric might be, let's say we use a engagement figure, like what is the percentage of employees that engage with this chatbot on a monthly basis? Okay, I'm not going to go into too much detail about whether those are the right metrics, because that's not the session we're running. But that, you'd firstly define like what you're trying to achieve here with your chatbot example. If you then go down to your opportunity, think about, okay, let's assume that we've got kind of a basic MVP. We've got like, okay, we've got a chatbot in place. That's kind of sort of what are the things that we can then do with that chatbot that can make it better? Or what are the features we need to add to that? So, or maybe you're thinking about the first version, so the first version opportunity is like, which data sources do we need to connect it to? Right, so we've got to think about the opportunity here is going to be connecting to more data sources, giving it more visibility over Google Drive and Jira and Dovetail and all these different services we use. And effectively, each one of those, like connecting to each one of those things is going to be a solution, which will then have some assumptions about, okay, actually, we want to connect it to Jira tickets. Is that technically feasible? Do they have an API? What can we know about those tickets? So on. Another opportunity here might be effectively like, what is the, how much is the chatbot like trained on our own data or the employee, the company data versus like generic, data from the internet? Okay, that's going to be, is there something we can then, we've got another opportunity there about saying like, can we improve the training of our model and get better answers? Okay, solutions, right. Well, we could retrain it on this data set or that data set. You might have some solutions down at that level then that you can go and attack. I'm hoping I'm kind of like doing this a little bit on the fly, Gina, so I'm hoping that gives you some ideas, but feel free to stick another question in or come off mute and ask me a question. Emma, you're asking, is there a minimum number of solutions you should aim for? I mean, I'd encourage you to have more than one. If you've got opportunities that I'd really kind of stretch to think about, can we get at least 2 or 3? So we've got a few different options here. That's not always practical. Like sometimes I think for the opportunities you identify, there's just one obvious thing that you should be building. So I would challenge yourself in that situation and be like, okay, can we think of 2 or 3? But if after, you've given it some thought, you've talked around with the team, you're just like, no, there's definitely just one clear answer here, then just get on with building that thing, right? I don't think, in a lot of cases, you don't need to second guess yourself. Okay. Just going to check if I've answered all these questions. If there's any others. Okay, Andrea is asking, does OST work if product and design work mostly on outcomes, opportunities, and involve engineering solutions architects more at point of coming up with solutions? I think I mean, I always believe in the power of the product trio. And I think if you can get your engineers and your solution architects involved, like right from the start, right from this kind of like defining the objectives and then the opportunities and all the way through, that's going to make them much more bought in than just kind of going to them when you're starting to talk about solutions and viability. The more that you have a cross-functional team that really understands the business context and the user context, then the more that you're going to get really kind of amazing solutions, because great solutions have that kind of that sense of diversity and that they're diverse. You have lots of different solutions that look at things from different perspectives, and those perspectives come from having diverse viewpoints from people who have different backgrounds. Okay, Beatrice asking a question here. What do you think about checking data points as a factor to assess the potential of the opportunity? Or would you see this on the solution level as part of the feasibility? Yeah, so if you scan out a bit, you're going to have your opportunities and you're going to have evidence at this level. And then you're going to have your solutions, and you're going to have evidence sort of further down the tree. Those, like in a lot of cases, those evidence points might be the same, right? And as I say, like this, an opportunity solution tree isn't something where you work kind of in a linear fashion, top to bottom, right? It's really something where actually, as you start thinking about solutions and concept testing solutions and prototyping them, that is going to inform the opportunity much better, because you're going to get better feedback from your customers. And that might also help you size the opportunity, which might even kind of give you an idea of like, okay, well, what is a plausible target, for us to hit, given we're working on these opportunities. So all of this stuff sort of happens a little bit in parallel and iteratively. You've just got to kind of, get something down on paper and then iterate. So what do I think about checking the data points? Yeah, I mean, I would definitely try and, as you think of opportunities, sense check yourself. Do we have evidence, or what evidence do we have for this? Is this just a gut feel, or do we have some kind of real insights to back this behind? And then on the solution side, again, I think you're going to ask the same question, but for a specific solution. So I would definitely do it as soon as you've got them, and then kind of come back to them and iterate and update as well. Okay, I've just realized we've got a whole Q&A section here with other questions. Right, let me come to some of these. How do you select an outcome if you're building a new product? So if you're building a new product, so up here, the opportunity, objective outcome level, I'd say, like, let's say you're really doing 0 for 1, like, that might be a kind of, oh, can we get 10 customers, or, can we get 3 customers to, be retained for 3 months? So you might set an objective at that level. I think it's going to probably be around getting a certain number of trial customers very early on. And then Partha asking, like, is the recording of this webinar going to be shared? Yes, absolutely. We are recording this, and we'll be sharing it on our YouTube channel, and we'll send out an email with that link as soon as we've uploaded it. Okay, I think that's most of the questions. We've got just a couple of minutes left, so if you have any final questions, please do drop them in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah, so Varun is calling me out my opportunities, and rightly noticed that I've kind of put a prompt here. How do we word opportunities? I've put the prompt here as I want to, or I need to, and then the example I've given is completely different. You know, and I've just said, opportunity here is to help users recognize the value the product offers ASAP. I think, as I say, a good prompt, a good way to think about this is as a user need, which is why I've kind of set this. But again, like if you're thinking about a pricing example, so let's take an example like eBay. Okay, we're working on a team at eBay, we work on the buyers team. We want to increase the number of transactions we're making. An opportunity here might be to say, you know, as a buyer, I want to find the item I'm looking for really easily. Okay, so that's going to be an opportunity that we can really state in a very kind of clear user need way. So I think that's quite a nice way of doing it. But you might have opportunities that are completely different, right? You might have opportunities that are like, oh, if we do this thing, then users get a benefit, or actually just the business gets a benefit. So yeah, not all of them are going to fit this framework. So no, so I kind of, beyond this, I don't have any kind of better ways of showing it. I think what's important to get right at this opportunity stage is you've got this kind of, you're specific enough about what is it you're talking about, but you've also given yourself some leeway to have multiple solutions. So I think an opportunity that is like a sentence or two in plain language, plain English is going to be valuable. Omid, from your experience, what complexity, so number of opportunities, number of solutions per opportunity is actionable? So usually when I've done this with teams, we'll have a single kind of objective with a mission and a metric. There'll then be, I'd say, 3 or 4 opportunities, but we'll prioritize 1 or 2 of those for a particular quarter. And then there will be anywhere from 3 to 6 solutions under each opportunity. And of those solutions, maybe 1 or 2, we've like really gone into this level of detail of like mapping out the assumptions, and the rest probably we haven't gone below the solution level into the assumptions at that stage. So you don't need to flesh out all of the branches in full detail all at the same time. It's really kind of like going to the level that makes you probably do like 1 or 2 solutions all the way down to the assumptions. Other solutions stop at the solutions level. Other opportunities stop at the opportunity level. With something like, how might we work at the opportunity level based on the evidence? Yeah, okay, that's a really good example. Thank you, Varen. I think, phrasing these opportunities as a kind of like, how might we X? That's a great way to frame your opportunities, particularly when you're customer focused. So I think that's a good add or a good way of looking at it. Might even nail that in right now. How might we? There we go. Okay. Is it common that one solution can tackle more than one opportunity? Yeah, that's not uncommon, actually. So depending on how you've defined your opportunities, you might say, oh, we want to do X, we want to do Y. Oh, and we're kind of thinking of building this thing, and it happens to solve both of them, at least to some degree. Again, these frameworks are just frameworks, and reality is a little bit more messy. So don't worry if that happens, right? You don't need to kind of force it under one or the other. Okay, Gabby, do you recommend doing this for a totally new full product relaunch as opposed to a more mature product which needs improvement? So again, for a kind of brand new product relaunch, I might, another framework might be a bit easier. So if you use like a Moscow framework or something like that, it's kind of like the classic one to use for a launch. You probably could make an opportunity solution tree work, but it might not be the best one for organizing your thoughts. Again, I think that's kind of key question, right? Like, is this the best tool that you could use to organize your thinking and to expose your thinking to other people, or are there going to be other ways of doing that? Okay. Q&A. Okay, so we are at time now. I'm going to stay on the call just for another couple of minutes, just if anyone does have any final questions. But as I mentioned, you can get this OST template in on Miro. Susanna will share the link with you, and we'll add this onto the website as well in the next day or two. We'll be sharing the recording, and if you've liked this session, you will very much likely like the rest of the content we have on Hustle Badger. You'll love our courses, and you'll love our paid membership, which is exceedingly good value at £29 a month. So check it out, and so on. If you've got any feedback on this session as well, or any future questions, please do reach out to me, Susanna, drop us an email, contact at HustleBadger, @HustleBadger, or look me up on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to kind of give more tips and thoughts where I can.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.